it is important to like be yourself. Like that is true transcendence of education. Like just being comfortable enough to show up in the classroom.
When Matthew Morris tells these aspiring teachers at Brock University to bring their whole selves to the classroom, he means it. This Toronto middle school teacher has positioned himself as an important voice on how the education system treats Black boys and young men, first with a TED Talk called The Fresh Prince Syndrome.
Will represented that quintessential young urban Black male. And we could come up with a dozen more character traits about Will in The Fresh Prince. But not one of them would embody what we idealize as the universal student. The Fresh Prince Syndrome is a benevolent ailment that plagues urban Black males.
And now, a book, a memoir called Black Boys Like Me. It caught the eye of a major publisher and, shortly after its release, cracked into the top 10 bestsellers lists of nonfiction, a spot usually reserved for celebrity bios. Not a common fate for a memoir by a middle school teacher.
I started to reflect on my own experiences as a Black male and my experiences as they related to schooling. And as I write about in the book, you know, I have a lot of friends and even family members that you could say were impeded by education and were impeded by school.
Morris grew up in Scarborough, a son of a white mother and a Black father, in a household sometimes short on money, but never on love. A strong student and athlete, he eventually played U.S. college football on a scholarship while he completed his undergraduate studies. Still, even as he thought of himself as Superman, he says he received messages in school that tried to limit what he should strive for.
When I was in elementary school very early, I was pushed into athletics simply because I won a race at recess or something like that, when I could have been pushed into science or academics because, to be quite honest, education and schooling at that time wasn't necessarily difficult for me and I got decent grades.
There were also not-so-subtle messages, like being stopped by the police just because of his arm tattoos, or the fact he was a young Black man driving an expensive car. Were those things that you went through as a young man, did they play into your decision to not become an athlete or a business person or a lawyer, but to be a teacher?
Yeah, they did. You know, I wanted to be able to come back to a community where I was born and raised in, and on a one-to-one level, show young Black males that you can exist in a way where you feel comfortable and a way that is still stitched to your community and your aesthetic, but you can also do well in school.
And that's the thing he always did, was went the extra mile.
Matthew Morris's former student Nathan Barnaby graduated high school and wants to go to college to study carpentry.
It was very cool to see a teacher with so many tattoos. He had a very nice fashion sense, which I was drawn to.
That initial connection built a deeper one when Nathan started not paying attention in class.
He understands the distractions, he understands the things that would hold you back. So when he comes to me, he just talks to me like, oh, I want to see you to your fullest potential.
It goes to show how far he's come in such a short period of time.
Another former student, Sean Morgan, is about to become a Toronto police officer.
I think seeing him in a role such as teaching, it kind of pushed me to be into a role of policing, because I want people to feel represented when they see me on the force.
So are things any different for Black boys and young men than they were when Matthew Morris was growing up? Recent years led to major conversations about race in education. Ontario just became the first province to make Black history mandatory in middle and high school. Streaming has been abandoned in many provinces because it was found to disproportionately steer Black students away from higher education.
We are at the starting block, so to speak, a moving starting block where conversations are happening and actionable items are starting to occur. We're not getting into the nitty-gritty aspects of what are the true problematic issues around equity and around race and around racism. So it's gotten better. It's better now than it was when I first started teaching over a decade ago. I think that the idea of starting with conversations is important. I just think that we also need to be cognizant of who we bring to the table when we are having these conversations.
Until then, he'll be speaking to young people, encouraging them to be neither Fresh Prince nor Carlton Banks, but something much fresher than that, themselves. Deana, Sumanac-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.